Well, hello everybody, and welcome to our monthly webinar here, Latinos in Clinical Research. We have, as always, a special guest. Today we have Derek Williams. He has more than 10 years experience in the industry. He has experience in every single part of the every single important part. So he started as a clinical research coordinator, then he became a site director, site owner. Now he is a senior CRA, and his strengths are in patient recruitment and site development. So here he is. Derek, thank you very much for being with us and for sharing with us your experience and obviously your tips and I mean we're very open to that, especially that this topic is such a challenge in the industry. So it's great to hear from different perspectives and especially somebody that has that as a I mean it has become a knack for you. So Derek, it's all yours.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Monica, thank you so much. And I can't tell you how excited I am to be here with you guys today. And I just think it's incredible. Like as I was telling Dan earlier, that I've been following him for years. I love what he's bringing to our industry. Um, you know, I used to be previously before I got into clinical research, I was in the real estate, mortgage, and finance, and that type of thing. And one of the things that I didn't like about that industry was like everywhere you went, if you sat at a table, there was, out of 10 people, there were 2 or 3 other people in your same industry, and it was like everybody knew somebody who was a realtor, somebody knew somebody who was in my business. And I said, it's so funny that in our industry, once I joined the clinical research industry, it's very similar, but it's different in the sense that nobody knows now. Nobody knows what we do, and you tell your family members and your friends and everything, about what you do, and still people don't know what you do. So I'm glad that Dan's been in the forefront of bringing, more attention to our industry, getting more people involved, regular people involved. I think that's really awesome and really exciting.
Thank you,
So what I would
Derek.
like to do is share with you guys today, my friend Monica, tabbed me today, and she said, you'd be good to talk about, you could come in and share a little bit about yourself and, how you got here, and also, share a little bit about recruitment and site development. So here we go. So as I mentioned, I had a previous industry, experience in the financial services industry. My wife was actually the CRA in her family. And so through a lot of, in our industry, we're always bringing it home, a lot of pillow talk, talking about different situations. She would always pick my brain about, what I thought about different things about, our industry. And I would always give her some of my feedback. And she said, you should really think about doing, joining the industry. And I was like, you don't even really like it that much, so why would I want to join it? Just poking at her, right? So anyway, as our children got older and my wife didn't, the thought of both of us traveling wasn't appealing to me initially. But I did stumble upon, there was a course at UCSD that had a clinical trials administration course. And I said, what, before I do anything, let me just take the course and see if I even like it. And when I took it, I really liked it. I loved all of the different facets, how drug was developed, the research and development process and all that, and how it came to fruition. And it just so happened that right around that same time, I had a colleague of mine who was an oncologist, and at a party I asked her, had she ever thought about doing clinical research? And she said, yeah, actually I am already doing it. But she was just doing it pro bono, as a friend, as a favor to the medical center that she worked for. And I asked her, hey, you ever thought about doing it as a business? And she said, yeah. I just don't know how to get into it. I said, man, I think I can help you. So we partnered together and we started a partnership. And as you guys all know, if you've been in the industry and if you started out at that level, you're the site manager, but you're also the janitor. you know, coordinator and everything else. So that was me. I was thrown into the fire and learned, you know, what some people would say the hard way, but I say the right way, because I got to learn our industry really from the bottom up, you know. So, and I've got to see and experience a lot of things. So, you know, it just so happened that, you know, working as you know, in clinical research along with her practice, the physician that I was working with, it was just too much. She had small children, so we decided not to continue our partnership. And it was at that time that I decided that I was going to become a CRA, and I was brought on by a small boutique CRO. And they actually brought me on for site development, to be honest with you, you know, because of my understanding of contracts and budgets and that kind of thing. And then it kind of morphed into me becoming a CRA. So, and that was over 10 years ago. And here I am now, you know, getting to talk with you guys about recruitment. Um, One of the things that I've learned, you know, throughout this process, I was very fortunate, you know, with the first CRO that I worked for, we really did concentrate a whole lot on, on site development. And what I've noticed uh, with most of our site partners, the biggest challenge was usually recruitment. You know, you do a lot of work. There's a lot of lead work. You know, contacted the sponsor, getting in front of them, going through the pre-selection visit, getting selected. You're super excited, you know, and then now the real fun begins, because the clinical trial doesn't even begin until you have subjects. And one of the challenges in our industry is sites routinely have challenges when it comes to recruitment. And the lifeblood of every clinical research site is the wealth of how many subjects you have. So knowing how to recruit, what to do, what to say, and what not to say is going to be very important. So what I thought I would go over with you today, obviously you probably have, this is such a huge topic. There's a lot to cover. But what I thought I'd do is just kind of break it down and to make it a little bit more palatable, easy to digest. I thought I'd break it down into two aspects. And really, this is how I see it. You know, you have the lead generation, the aspect when you're trying to generate leads or generate referrals or, you know, get subjects. And then the second part to that is, which is equally important, is once you do get a lead or once you do get a referral, how do you turn that referral or that lead into a subject? Because that's the unknown part, you know, that many people miss. And they get the subjects, and then for some reason when they make the call, they don't get a call back, unresponsive, um, or maybe they come part of the way and then they don't show up again. So I'm going to talk about what I found so far has been some of the strategies and tips that I think that may be useful. And the funny thing is, the reason I'm even on this call is because I met with Monica and I was there on what we would call in our industry a booster visit. And what is a booster visit? Booster visit is, oh, we need a little bit of jump, you know, a bolt of energy possibly, or maybe some tips, maybe some tricks on what we can do in order to bump up recruitment. So I'm going to share with you some of the same things I've shared with some of my other site partners, because what I really believe in the strength of our industry is really going to be based upon best practices. And the great part that I have is that I get to meet with a variety of different sites. Some are successful, some are not successful. So once you learn what the most successful sites are doing, you know, there was always one of my mentors would always say, you know, success leaves clues. And if we're wise, we'll look and follow the clues of the sites that have been successful and follow their trends. So if I can ask anyone, I'm just going to put a question out there. If you have a site and a PI, what is your best referral source? Can anybody answer that? What is your best referral source?
Well, it should be the principal investigator, right? and the sub-investigators, if the sub-investigators are in the same therapeutic area.
Absolutely. So if you have a PI and the PI has a database of subjects that meet your indication, that's going to be your very first and your best referral source. So obviously, learning how to mine that, learning how to read charts, work with your PI to bring those referral sources, to the forefront. That's another story. But what I really wanted to hone in on is the next level. The next level is going to be your warm referrals. And these are going to be referrals that are very similar to the PI and database referrals. It's going to be using other PIs and other industry resources, such as hospitals and medical groups. And this is what I'm going to call your network. So once you start, anybody who has a site, and if you have a PI, you have a network. Any person or any group or any association, hospital, medical group that your PI is associated with or has associations with should be your primary target. And what I've noticed in our industry and with many of my sites, very few sites have very strong connections with their network. So if you really want to have a very strong recruitment referral base, it's very important that you network with your network. So, and what does that mean? Networking with your network. That means starting off making contact with all of the warm referrals within your network. That can come by a variety of different ways of making that happen. What I've seen based on some of the industry changes and trends is, obviously a lot of people use social media and all of its platforms in order to do recruitment. But that's really not a warm referral. That usually comes from people that you don't know or don't know well. What you really want to do is start off with people that you know and that you know well. And just like I mentioned, how when I was in real estate, I could sit down at a table and there would be several of us in the same industry. You could sit down right now and you could probably put 8 to 10 tables together and you're not going to find 2 researchers together. So you have a super opportunity in an open market because everybody that you talk to it's going to be new to them. Everybody that you meet is going to be open eyes and open ears for you, unlike it would be in many other industries. So I would encourage you to get on the platform and really start networking with your network. And believe it or not, obviously you're going to be starting with other physicians, hospitals, and medical groups, but don't shy away from friends and family or anybody else. Let them know what kind of studies you're working on when you're working on them. You'd be surprised who knows who knows who. Just like I'm on this conversation right now, who would have ever known that Dan and Monica were connected, and I'm connected with Monica, and that Judy Galindo is on this call, and she's also one of my site partners. You just never know what group you're going to be in. So don't ever be shy about mentioning what you do. And then the next most important thing is why you're doing it. I have a picture behind me. I went to Big Bear, it was about 3 or 4 years ago. It was a celebration. My mother had lung cancer and she went through treatment and thankfully she was able to recover. But during that process, I got to really come to understand really the importance of our contribution to the whole medical society. And if you're not really connected as to why you're doing what you're doing, I tell you, take a step back and reevaluate what contribution you're making to the industry. Because all the time you'll see studies that you've worked on, medications that are going to market, that are serving populations of people that you've worked with. And those people one day may possibly be someone that you love and care about. So when you're starting off in your journey in recruitment, I want you to start off with your why you're doing it. Why is it important? Why should they come into the office? Why should they come into your office? What's important about this trial? What difference is it going to make in their life? What benefits will they realize after completing this trial? Once you connect with the why, then you can start asking some other pertinent questions to your referral, or excuse me, to your subjects. And that's going to be what their whys are. Why are they here? It isn't often that we ask the question, well, why do you want to be in this particular trial? Why is research important to you? Finding out why your subjects are willing to explore experimental drug or treatment is important. Once you know that, you can connect with them in a way that no one else can connect with them. So it's very important that, number one, when you're making that call to someone that you see as a potential subject, that you take a step back and remember your why you're there, why we all are here. And secondarily, make sure that you're inquisitive as to what their why is. Why do they want to take this journey? Because once you can connect with somebody and find out, I'm doing this because of my mom, I'm doing this because of my child, I'm doing this because I want to leave a long-lasting mark, and said that I did my part, or I was a contributor, whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but everybody has their why. And it's important for us, and as busy as we are, as busy as you are, believe me, I know how busy you are. I've been there. But as busy as you are, to take a second and find out, why is it important to them? When they come and they speak to you, you only have a few seconds, many times, to make a connection. And those few minutes, I've learned from the sites that do it the best, is about making a connection. Now, I can tell you, if you got on the call and you were thinking we were going to go over, oh, you should try study kick or trial partners, or, I can give you all the mechanisms. But what you'll see, what happens is people will get referrals, but they won't get subjects. And they won't get people who bind to them, who are willing to finish the process. And that's because we haven't done the small things that allow us to really move the marker. Because what we do, our field is really, as Dan would always say, it's the ecosystem. And it really is. And our connection to our referral partners, when you are able to make connections with your referral partners, so just think about this. You have a site, and every hospital knows that you do research. Every physician, every nurse practitioner, every PA in your area knows that you're in research, and they know what indications that you primarily serve, if you serve multiple indications. But they know you, right? They know you, and more importantly, you know them. Just like if this was your mother or your daughter or your son, if you were to refer them, you would want to refer them to somebody who you know, right? So when I say to someone, hey, Dr. Johnson said you'd be a good candidate for this trial, that carries weight, especially if the person is familiar with Dr. Johnson. And if Dr. Johnson happens to be their own physician, how much more weight does that carry? And you've just taken on the strength and power of the referral power of that physician just by having that connection. So as you're developing your referral ecosystem, Remember, always starting off with your PI. Whatever is in the database, that's gold, absolute gold. Don't think to go anywhere else until you exacerbate that first. I see a lot of sites we get there and so PI has a huge database and they're paying for an outside vendor to recruit for them. And then, of course, the vendor does what they do. They turn the dirt. They generate a lot of opportunity, but it's very difficult to close uh, when you don't have a connection with somebody, and much easier to close when you have a connection with somebody. So make sure, number one, that you're starting off with your PI's database. Two, start your warm market. Connect with the connectors. There's no need you going after one or two people when you can connect with a group of physicians who can send you multiple referrals. Just think about it. If you were in a network that had 10 physicians and each one sent you one referral every other month, that's six per per physician. Over 10 months, that's 60 referrals. It's easy when you think about it because recruitment really is, it's a numbers game. But there's 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 nuances though. There's nuances to recruitment. As much as we want to get all of the numbers, how you get those numbers is equally important, if not more. So by developing your ecosystem, first starting off with your PI, secondly setting off with your sub-I and any of their connections, and setting up your network, then you're going to be using all of the traditional, or which are becoming more traditional, resources, social media, Facebook, Instagram. We've done Craigslist, making sure that you're connecting to medical organizations. If you're in an indication and you're doing oncology, then you automatically should be connected to a breast cancer association or lung cancer association or a cancer association in general. If you're doing, heart disease and you're not connected, you need to be connecting to the American Heart Association, diabetes, the American Diabetes Association, all the associations. They should know who you are and that you are part of the team. And because there are a lot of things that they can't do, and they need you as a site in doing clinical research to provide a service that they cannot provide, that only you can provide. You're the middle gap for a lot of different not industries, but a lot of different players within our industry. So once you know that how needed you are, you'll approach recruitment in a different mindset. You'll realize that you're actually a very needed source. You're a very needed player. Your subjects need you. The organizations need you. The PIs need you. The hospitals need you. Everybody needs you. They just don't know. And it's our job to get out there and let them know how we can be of benefit to them. So we've already talked about knowing your why, getting to know the why of your subjects, and understanding that recruitment in general is a numbers game. Getting more referrals is going to give you more opportunities. And then lastly, as we move toward what do you do now once you have a referral? Okay, so now all the hard work has already been done. You've talked to your database. They've agreed to listen to you, because that's usually the first step. They're willing to listen, and who knows how far that's going to go, but they're willing to listen. So now what do? I tell you what we do. The first thing that we do is we decide who is the best person to talk to them. Making sure you're a site, put forth Look through your staff members and find out who's the best person to talk to them. Who has a welcoming voice or tone? Who has the kind of spirit that people connect with? Because a lot of these things aren't rocket science, but these nuances, a lot of times when we get so busy in our work, oh, you do it. You'll just point to someone else to do it, and we'll pick anybody to do it, not realizing that, man, this is probably singularly going to be one of the most important decisions that you make as a site owner and as a site developer. Who are you going to trust to bring in your most prized possession? And if you go slack on that, it's all going to be downhill from there. You'll always be chasing, trying to catch up. But if you take a few minutes to find out who the right person is or who the right people are, who are going to be a part of your recruitment team, make sure you make the right selection. Selecting the right person is critical. Secondly, iron sharpeneth iron. Create teams. Find your champion, and then find your champion's champion. Find somebody to work with your champion that's going to help them develop and become even better. We all can become better. Trust me, the recruitment process is not a zero-sum game. It's a development game. We always can get better at recruitment. How we say, what we say, when we say it. That brings me to a very important point. When you're developing a recruitment team, make sure you have someone that's available after hours. I would suggest if they're working full time, make them 10 to 7. Make sure that there's somebody to overlap outside of your normal work hours that can stay late, that can make the kind of calls. Everybody isn't going to be available during the bank hours from 9 to 5. Many times you'll make your best recruitment catches between that catch space between when somebody gets off of work and while they're making dinner, or right around that time period. So anytime between 5 and 8, even if you need to stagger someone where they come in at 4 and work from 4 to 8 if they're working part-time, I would make that suggestion. It's very important that you catch people where they are and make it as comfortable and as easy as it can be for them to say yes. So developing a schedule and a strategy that allows your champion to have the greatest opportunity of success, I think is going to be critical. And then also too, spend a few minutes during the week with a recruitment strategy. What are we going to say? Do you have a script? Are you guys all saying the same thing? If that person isn't there, is the next person up going to come with the same kind of energy and give the same verbiage and information? It's important. Make sure you spend a few minutes developing what your recruitment strategy is, how we're going to contact people, and then also knowing when you make that call, knowing your stuff, knowing your inclusion exclusion criteria. That's going to be very important. Remember, you only have a few seconds many times, a couple of minutes many times to make that connection. Knowing what your study offers, and then also knowing what some of the barriers are going to be very important. When you know ahead of time what some of the challenges are for recruitment, you already know that by looking at the inclusion exclusion criteria before you even call the subject. You should have already, as a team, discussed what are our workarounds. How can we get around this objection if there is one? Sometimes you can't. Sometimes, as you guys know, the protocol is so stringent, they're looking for a needle in a haystack, and many people are just not going to qualify. But what I find quite often is that sites with a little bit more preparedness can look over those inclusion exclusion criteria and determine what are going to be the best ways to meet those challenges. So if you're looking over those and coming up with ideas as to what we can do, or what, and this is just giving an example. So I'm working right now on a study where breastfeeding is an issue. The sponsors offered a variety of different resources. Knowing what those resources are is critical. When you're speaking with someone and the sponsors offer transportation, making sure you let people know there's transportation available. If there are any other resources that the sponsors made available, childcare, make sure that they know that childcare is available. All of the resources that the sponsor is offering should be something that should be common knowledge that should come off your tongue just as easily as you can say hello, because you only have a few minutes to make that connection. And everybody, as they always say in the sales industry, and it's the same in our industry, the subjects want to know what's in it for them. Why should they come? Why is this going to be important? And by you doing a little bit of leg work, really knowing what your inclusion exclusion criteria are, knowing what all the resources that are available on your study, and having a great connection with your referral sources if you needed to refer them for anything, is going to be the difference between night and day. I've seen sites who have received hundreds of referral leads and have no subjects. Hundreds of referral leads with no subjects. At some point, you can't blame the referrer. At some point, you have to look and say, what can we do better? What are we missing? And I tell you, some of the things that are missing are in plain sight, and they're easy. They're easy. They're easy. Let's start off with saying, hey, let's make sure that we make a connection. Let's expect the call. When you go out and you do the work to have a referral, expect them to call you. Know that they're going to call you and be ready. And then once you get your opportunity, sometimes you can do your very best spiel and the person still says no. I say there are no no's. It's just not right now. I would encourage you when you're talking with any of your potential subjects, and if they tell you no, you say, I totally understand. Hey, do you mind if I follow up with you in another couple of weeks? Thank you. I'll call you back in about 2 weeks. When that happens, make sure you immediately put them in your calendar. Find out what's going to be the best time to reach them again. Put them in your calendar. When that day comes, you be right there, Johnny on the spot. And it's nothing more endearing to someone when they tell someone no and the person continues to follow up and they're punctual, they're on time, and they know their stuff. So if I was apprehensive, scared, concerned, you've just broken that barrier. Now they're willing to listen to you because you've done a very simple thing. You just did what they asked you to do. You called them back when they said to call and you were available. And I'm telling you, that process right there, as Dan would say, follow up, follow up, follow up. Very important. Continue to follow up. If you master that aspect of our business, which is talking with individuals, being told no, because that's part of the process, understanding that, because most times people don't even understand what it is that they're saying no to. You have to be thinking of, what is your counter? What can I offer them that would make them or allow them to see what I'm telling them in a different light? Sometimes it might be smart. Hey, you know what? Let me give you a copy of the informed consent. Won't you take this? I'm gonna send it to you. I'd like for you to go ahead and read it. And better yet, won't you take it to your physician and ask him what they or her what they think about it? Maybe you want to care. Maybe you want to share this with your children. Maybe that's your why. Maybe that's why you said no. Maybe because you don't understand enough about it to make an intelligent decision, so it's easier to say no. So let me go ahead and offer to send you the informed consent. Read over it. And you know what? I'll follow back up with you next week or 2 weeks. What will work best for you? Right? So now you've gotten, and once they say yes, trust me, you've just made a huge inroad. Now you have a reason to follow up, and now you have something to talk about and another opportunity to make a connection, because that's all it is. It's about making a connection. And once you are tied with why you're calling, your energy is going to be different. Once you're connected to why they want you to call, your energy is going to be drastically different. The call is so much better. It's so much better calling somebody you have a connection with versus calling someone blindly, asking them to do a, a Herculean task, which is to come in and take investigation. What, are you kidding me? It's not even been, it's still in the trial process. You want me to take that? You're asking, think about what we're asking them to do. And once you think about that and put yourself in their shoes and you become more compassionate, you become a super recruiter. A super recruiter. Once you know your why, you know their why, and you can connect with them in a way that they've never been connected with, you'll grow your business in leaps and bounds. You guys have any questions?
Wow. Well,
That's
like
great.
like Groucho Marx
Thank
said,
you.
those are my principles, and if you don't like them, I have others. Uh, no, it's good. I think one of the things, Derek, and then we'll get to actually some of the questions, and you can either chat or unmute yourself. But one of the things, like as someone who was in the real estate industry for a while, we have a lot of coaches there in that industry. They're
Yeah.
training the agents on how to get leads. One of the things that stuck with me was, you want more leads? Just talk to more people about real estate. And it kind of reminds me of this, because the approach is simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. It's basically talking, having conversations, beginning with your immediate sphere of influence and then extending out, right, through the connections, through the warm referrals that you get. So why do you think, I mean, somebody who does booster visits, and by the way, I want to interview you for my podcast just on how you got a career in site development and booster visits, but that's later.
Okay.
What's like the main reason why sites need a booster visit in the first place? Like, is there a commonality? Is it really something simple as not communicating? And then how do we change that?
Yeah, well, you know what? Like I was saying, to me, it's really more of an energy thing. It's more spiritual than it is actual. You know what I mean? I can come and tell you all the different tips, but if you don't have the energy behind it to make it happen, then it really doesn't matter. So as you know, so when you're excited about a study, man, it's much easier to recruit when you're not excited, right? So excitement plays a big difference in how well you recruit, right? It plays a big difference in how you go after referrals. It plays a big difference on how you interface with the referral and how you interface with your subjects. So all of that is noticeable. And it's difficult in my position when I come to someone, I can't tell you, hey man, it's time for you to get excited. Let's go get them, man. You know, I have to come with a different approach. I have to tell them all the different strategies and techniques. But the reality it is, man, you got to be connected to your why. Because soon as you get connected to why you're doing what you're doing, you're going to have a different outcome. Your outcome really has a lot to do with your income. How you are inwardly is being manifested outwardly. You can see it in your mannerisms, your phone calls, your emails, all of it. But when you're on the phone with somebody and they can tell that you're excited, when they used to say smile through the phone, when they hear that, because you know, most of our connections now, just think about it now, we're not meeting people face to face hardly anymore. So you got to figure out a way to smile through your email, smile on the phone, smile on your on your on your any type of referral paperwork, anytime advertisings. Somehow you got to figure out how to smile and connect through those mediums, because we're not seeing people face to face anymore. They're not coming into the office for you to do the whole process and then say no. Most of the time, you got a text message, an email message, or a phone message to make a connection. And if you miss that opportunity, then you've just missed that opportunity.
Yeah, I think a lot of the responsibility lies on the employer. It's easy to blame the coordinator or whomever's in charge,
Absolutely.
but if there's no incentive structure, but then
Absolutely.
how do you change this though? You can't talk to the site owner and tell them, hey, your incentives suck. Like, what are you gonna say?
Most of them don't have any. Not even that they suck, they don't even have any. And the thing about it is, the more someone recruits, that's a bottom line generator. It's the most important dollar aspect of any business in our industry.
So, I'm sorry, I was just wanting to ask, follow up to Dan, what he stated there. In terms of incentives, what do you think is the most productive incentive for a coordinator or any staff member to recruit?
Cash. Cash.
Man, I like that.
The sponsors giving reimbursements and things to subjects to come in, but for some reason, the person who brings them in gets nothing. Why is that?
Well, don't some sponsors frown on cash payments for recruitment?
Not if they want to enroll for their studies.
No, well, this is the thing. The sponsor spends thousands, millions of dollars, if not, in recruitment. Amongst 100 sites, they're going to give each site how much do you request in your advertising budget? And that's each site, and that's hundreds of sites per the study. So the sponsors are already prepared, willing. That's the reason why they contact you, because if they had the subjects themselves, they wouldn't need the sites. They come to the sites because the sites have the subjects. So figuring out an equitable way to compensate the team, because I don't say it's just one person, because it really takes a team, to recruit. How do you compensate your team for a job well done? And I think that there's some way that, maybe you have a target, a benchmark of, this is because, first of all, most sites don't meet in enrollment targets. Put that down. Let's meet our enrollment target. Every study that we're in, we make sure that our site meets the enrollment target. If you meet the enrollment target, we got a little surprise for you. Because I think that as you see the sponsors are all trying to put, oh, it's the Olympics. Well, how are you doing in recruitment? Oh, it's the Super Bowl. Who's the Super Bowl team? Who's the best? They're putting in all kind of incentives, games, different things to try to motivate sites to be really engaged in this process. Why? Because they spend thousands upon thousands of dollars just to bring you aboard.
Yeah, we got a question from Nicole, but bronze medal, very underrated. That's a deep statement right there. All right, Nicole.
I have a question. So I'm working on the CRO side right now, and we have a study that we're really struggling on recruitment, and the sponsors like willing to do anything to get recruitment. But you hear from some people and you can't really find an answer. Our sponsor, if I said something like so we're using this big campaign, and like you said, these sites are getting 150 to 250, I would say, referrals so far in like 2 months. And maybe like 3 subjects have screened from all of our sites. So I'm talking 800. And so the sites are like, oh, this campaign sucks. We don't like it. We like the other one we had before. It was so much better. It was quality patients. We looked at the questions. It's using Instagram, Facebook. It's the same kind of thing. It's just targeting the same population. And so I think it's kind of like a lot of work, and the sites are kind of checked out. is it appropriate for us to propose something for the sponsor to maybe provide some kind of incentive to the recruiters? Do you think that would be a good idea? And do you guys know if that's legal? Is that allowed?
I'm gonna say, and Dan will probably back me up, the sponsor's probably not gonna do that, because that's really a site level issue. Just as he says, that's an owner issue. How you're going to incentivize your staff to perform. You know, if you can't do it, what makes you think we can do it as a sponsor? You know what I mean? So it's really going to be incumbent upon the site owner to know what buttons to push for their staff members to get them to be able to do that. And, you know, obviously the sponsor can, you know, have an executive call and talk about, you know, the importance and that kind of thing. But ultimately, it's really about sites really buying into why they're there and their importance in the process. And unfortunately, what's happened is you'll be on a study where the patient population and the protocol just meet up really good and it's easy. And everybody can recruit for the studies that are easy because they almost recruit from themselves. The referrals come in, you ask somebody like, oh, heck yeah, we love to do that. The question is, what do you do on the studies where it's not so easy, where the protocol is a little bit more challenging? And that's where it takes that energy level that I talk about, that requires you to do a little bit more, a little bit extra, a little bit longer to get your outcome.
So maybe the sponsor should educate more the sites about it, or the options that are out there. I mean, that sites can take into, I mean, that can make it as part of their site. How can I say?
I don't
Maybe
think so.
daily. No?
No, I actually want, I'm going to throw it back on the sponsor, because if you are working on a study and you're getting that many leads and you're only able to schedule so many, it must be a very difficult protocol, I would assume, with very difficult criteria. So that doesn't even fall on the site. I think that I would say most of the sites are probably doing what they can with the resources that they can. If the sponsor has a very difficult protocol, they need to go back and revise their protocol, or they need to start doing some outreach and connecting with other physicians in the community to help these sites get possibly potential patients. Kind of going back to what Derek said, reaching out to your community. But I think this is where maybe the sponsor needs to step in and help those sites and physicians do that. That might be actually less expensive than trying to throw money at another campaign that is going to yield the same results. You know, I think there's other ways they can go about it. The other thing I wanted to mention, I know about incentives. I have had, I've been on studies where sponsors, they didn't pay us like a recruitment fee. As you mentioned, it's kind of a gray area, but we've received gift cards before for like Starbucks or DoorDash to buy lunch for the staff, things like that. So that's another incentive too. If the referrals are there and sites aren't doing everything they need to do, maybe as an incentive as a gift card might be better than, you know, some kind of
now
bonus.
that you mentioned that, Judy, now that you mentioned that we had in the past been incentivized, like for example, if we get a certain amount of patients during a specific period, the sponsor will give us a bonus. I think it was like within 1 month or 2 months, they will give us a bonus per patient.
But was that to the site or a bonus to the actual staff, like the coordinator and the recruiter?
The sponsor to the site, but
okay.
obviously
the site should give it to the staff.
Exactly.
That's a happy side owner.
Exactly.
That's what
It's
I was
supposed
saying.
to trickle down.
Absolutely.
I mean,
That's
obviously,
yes.
the
Yes.
most important asset of a company are the employees, right?
Yeah.
So, so you have to take care of your employees.
Yes,
Right.
no, I agree with both of
Yeah,
you guys on
that's
that.
true.
With the sponsor, like the sponsors, you know, the IE criteria too strict, but they're not going to change that. But where I was disagreeing with you, Monica, I think this is where you were going. It was like sponsors should educate sites on how to do these things. Sponsor will never, ever, ever, ever be creative about anything. Their liability is all they think about. If you're waiting for a sponsor to be creative
Okay.
about anything, you're gonna wait, you know, for a very long time. It's just not gonna happen. But
Well, this is
that's
why
companies
LSAR is here, right?
This is exactly why LICR exists and why other companies exist.
So
To
they
do these
can
kind of things.
outsource. they can
Mhm.
outsource that part to
That's right.
us,
Right.
for example.
But we're but if you see it though, we are filling a void. There is a void. There is a
Mhm.
void of creativity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There is a void of community connection.
Mhm.
Those are the things that's a void that we can fill. It's a vacuum that we have the experience, the connections, and the know-how to do it. As I mentioned with Judy before, ask the sponsor for additional resources for outreach. If you need to bring in someone in that's going to specialize in going out and making those connections for your referral sources, man, trust me, the sponsor would love, because they can't do that like that. It doesn't look the same if they come in, if Pfizer comes in and says, hey, you guys come, connect with us. It's so much easier if they say, hey, we'll just give you guys the money and you guys go invite them to come in. Because why? Because they trust you. If we come in, they're going to think we're trying to do something. If we give the money to you, they think, oh, okay, yeah, we trust Dr. Johnson. We trust Judy. We trust Monica. Why? Because we know those guys. So if once we just realize what our part, this is our part. Our part is to encourage the sponsor to support us. It's one of those things. It's like that movie, Help Me Help You. What is it, Jerry Maguire? Help me help you. And they know it, but just as you mentioned, they don't know how to best go about it. And this is the great thing. Once you start developing this ecosystem referral outreach development, it'll work with every sponsor because every sponsor needs it. Once you do that, you'll be able to ask for the same kind of budgetary resources to help build that outreach because they all want it. And they're going to keep coming back to you because the more you develop it, the more it's going to produce.
That's
You're gonna
right.
have,
So
You know why I
you
think,
can include that in the actual budget.
yeah,
Like
Yeah, you
in
can
yeah,
request
referrals.
that. And some
yeah.
sponsors are very open to it, and some actually, Derek, I think
Oh
I wish
yes,
more were on board with
yes,
that,
yes,
but
yes.
I got a lot of
Yeah.
pushback on it.
Oh
But I
yeah.
think they're starting to kind of like move
Mm-hmm.
forward. We're like,
They
okay, they
are.
understand we have to do something outside of the regular stuff that we were
Mm-hmm.
doing, the
yeah,
central
if you
Yeah.
recruitment.
provide results,
Right.
they'll pay for it. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I
but
it.
have
that's the
an
issue.
issue.
That's the issue is that if
Yeah.
it's a difficult protocol and maybe you were struggling recruiting, you don't have results to provide yet until you're able to do those things. So it's kind of like, well, I can't really show you my results, but I know I can connect with all these people and then hopefully get what I need. So yeah.
Yeah.
Kind
But
of makes me think that this is because we're providing and we're paying for the campaign out of sponsors' money.
Right.
It's not coming out of their budget. I think you pay for like a pair of shoes, you take care of it. You buy your kid a car, my daughter crashed it. Like, I think that might be the situation here. It kind of like seems like that. So yeah, thank you guys.
Mhm.
But Nicole, I actually had a question, Nicole, given that you are from a CRO, if, for whatever reason, for instance, with like LICR or even, Black Women in Clinical Research or any other organization that's looking to get connected in that sense to kind of facilitate that gap, right, for recruitment knowledge or things like that, what would you say or do you feel is probably the best route to take in order to see, how to start those conversations?
How to start those conversations as far as you guys getting in to work with us or
Well, we're not.
recruitment?
Oh, like just like, I guess having the conversation with recruitment to see how, if there's a possible way of collaboration in that sense, maybe not, sometimes I understand that CROs aren't necessarily super comfortable, but maybe in the sense of finding a way to be introduced to their site so that, we're an open, organization that is open for free content, teaching, right? In situations like that. I mean, just
Yeah,
spitballing right now.
send me information and I'm all open to present it because right now we're definitely looking for something innovative, something different. We have a lot of sites. They're like university sites. They're all like, UCLA, University of Washington, all these big sites with tons of doctors and thousands, millions probably of patients. And yeah, we're having a trouble, but it is a study with couples, you know, it's kind of harder, you know, you need an andrology lab and things like that they have there.
Mhm.
So, but I haven't really thought about the potential of adding on other sites that are not in a university, and it's NIH government funded research. I don't know if that makes a difference. So I would need to look at all that. But I have worked on another study. It's a private sponsor recently where we had to do booster visits and the whole recruitment thing. And what we did was a sponsor said, you know what, we're going to send every single site is getting a booster visit, even if they're doing well. And we all need them done in a month and a half. And we had like 100 sites. So it was crazy. We brought on a bunch of CRAs and did all that. But yeah, me, I'm always open. I'm always pushing for sites. If there's something that you feel you need from us and you're going to do better, like Nicole, I need this. I need this much money. It's going to cost this long. It's going to run this long. I did this other study. We had 50 referrals and we had 20 enrollments or 10, even good, whatever. And I could take that back and say, hey, you know, then I can definitely, it's more when they say no, it means on a case by case basis. There's always room for negotiation.
Sure.
The sponsor doesn't want to go past their timelines. The sponsor wants to enroll on time. So they will pay and they will throw away more money as needed for that kind of stuff, you know, because I think it's better spent when somebody's actually put the thought into it and has a plan and has a track record.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
that's
think
the
that's
next question.
definitely a good idea. Like Judy said, now they are kind of more open to, oh yeah, you did good on like, you know, protocol A, now B, yes, you got it kind of thing. So I think it's kind of that.
Okay.
This has been really helpful for me because it's been a while since I worked at the site, you know, level. And man, I mean, I think we're making it too easy paying for these central campaigns where everything doesn't work the same in every area, you know? If you have
Yeah, and
something specific to you, yeah.
most definitely. And I think
Definitely.
that's kind of why we like with LACR, I personally love having these interviews because you'll get somebody from Cali, some from Miami, some from up north, and it's a whole different story, different approach of what's working for who and things like that. So, I mean, I'm super grateful, and I know the rest of the team's grateful that you're here because getting somebody to speak on, not necessarily on behalf of CRO, but you know, coming from a CRO perspective, right? It's good to hear because
Thank you guys for
it's a full
having me.
round. Yeah, for
I
sure.
saw the email. Thanks, Dan, putting it together. Thank you, Derek. Yeah.
Absolutely. We got a question: in academia, money incentives are not allowed. If you are good enrolling subjects in full compliance, that will be rewarded in the employee annual performance evaluation. Yeah, and that's part of the problem. And actually what Nicole was saying, I mean, it's happening a lot now with the public-private partnerships like the academia partnering with community clinics in their area. I know ASU up in Phoenix is doing this with private clinics because they can do things like that. So yeah, academia, this probably doesn't apply in academia because money incentives are not allowed, but in private sites it's allowed. Matter of fact, at our sites it's encouraged. You know, if you can enroll a patient, like even the receptionist, hey, if you can get us the pre-screenings, like we're gonna give you, you know, $25 or like a Starbucks gift card or something just to keep the ball rolling, keep momentum. Because when you lose momentum at a site, it's over. I mean, it takes so much more effort to get that momentum going again. Even if there's a
Mhm.
screen failure, I'd rather have that activity than nothing. Screen failures practice for the staff. It gets them going. They have to read the scripts, go through the ICF, as opposed to doing nothing. What do? You go on Facebook and you look at like newsfeed political nonsense. That's the alternative. So yeah, academia, there's a lot of problems there. There's a lot of good as well because that's where a lot of the early stage research is done, and obviously they have huge databases. But yeah, a lot of this stuff doesn't apply to academia. You are right. You are
You
right.
hit on a really good point though, Dan. And see, I think that so as we talk about recruitment, so say there is a problem with the protocol. If you're recruiting and many of the subjects have the same screen failures amongst all of the sites, it sends a direct message to the sponsor, hey, there's something up with this protocol. But it's hard to tell the sponsor there's something up with the protocol, but that's not based on a screening and finding out through the fact that they're failing screening, right? So you don't really know until you screen them, and the sponsor doesn't know anyway. We know, but the sponsor doesn't really know until they go through that process. So getting them through that process and building that into your business model, to saying, to be compensated a certain amount per screen failure. So it protects you, one, and then two, it also lets the sponsor know it isn't us, it's the protocol. And trust me, it won't be just your site. It'll be sites all over the study. They'll have the same kind of issues if it is truly a protocol related challenge. So I would say continue to do your part and bring them in, and it creates a clear message to the sponsor, that we're holding up our end of the bargain. Now, what are you going to do to make some adjustments? And trust me, they do make adjustments. That's what all amendments are for. Amendments are because they made an adjustment to the protocol, and it does happen. But you really help to force their hand by bringing in the subjects and showing the possible flaws in the design of the protocol.
Yeah, that's actually a great point that I didn't really think about. But yeah, if enough sites are having the same issues, sponsors going to be forced to go back to the drawing board, or just risk not having a study complete on time or ever. Any other questions or comments or concerns? Derek, we got to do a podcast. I want to get into the whole generalist thing. I think it's very important.
Yeah, would love to.
I think that's pretty much all the questions for now, and we're actually a bit over time. But honestly, thank you so much, Derek. This
Thank
has
you so
been
much,
great.
Derek.
Really
Yeah,
great
thank you.
conversation.
Yeah,
Thank you.
You brought different perspective.
Yes.
And of course, we would love to have you back on as we go through, our openings and things like that. We would definitely keep you in contact because, you brought very valuable information. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Everybody have a
Derek.
great day.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Derek.
Bye.
Have a good
Thank
evening.
you.